Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. It's a late night episode, so my voice has to be lower than usual. But where is perception's domain? Could the emergence of the human being be physically singular, but subjectively and abstract, multidimensional? Why can we as human beings consider multiple decisions before we make a decision? What is that faculty? Like, what is that space before the decision where probabilities of reality exist, you know? Whether you are Schrodinger looking for your cat in a box, or whether you are someone who's wondering if your loved one loves you. You know, it's the same thing as Schrodinger's cat, you know, as if there's a universe where the person you love doesn't love you, and there's a universe where they do. And if you're lucky, you will make that universe this universe. This mystery of the human mind, this mystery of intelligence, it is very unanswered. What does that mean? That means I was very proud of human knowledge. I was very proud. I felt that we could see things, we were doing things correctly. I felt like an intelligent civilization until I'd realized that a lot of our intelligence, a lot of our meaning is kept through language. And language was sparked here on earth. What does that mean? That means the same way we discovered fire, we discovered an ability to link a subject with an object, or even the ability to perceive a phenomena as having an objective component and a subjective component. Nowadays, in 2020, right now, I'm speaking in Canada, of course, but what has happened is that the subjective component to our intelligence has been uh, um, uh, physically devalued. You know, what that means is before the inventor makes the invention, it's woo woo, as certain militant atheists would say. You know, that means before it happens, it is a potential. So we can say everything is a potential before it happens, you know? Whether the person wants to entertain the notion of an alien, the notion of a god, the notion of a spirit, whatever you want to entertain, it seems like the mind is a multidimensional field of potential where the body is what arises, what sprouts from that field. Okay, sorry guys, I had to handle something there. Pretty much my inquiry of our condition as creatures is, first I thought everything was okay. Everything was in a certain way, in a story that was satisfactory. Then you begin seeing holes in the story. Then you begin to get off the ship and swim yourself, you know? Now, the mind and the body, this was the traditional view. The body, mind, soul idea. The soul was pure unknown. The body was pure known. That's the only thing you could do with the body, just know it and use it. And then there's the mind. And the mind is the mysterious component. What that means is all of man's uh, subjective visualization of what the world could be is between the absolute unknown and the absolute known. And so multidimensionality is the bridge between the known and the unknown, you know? The way I tried to engage imagination was really the imagination is the phenomenology of the mind, we can say. It's the mind's life. Reality is your body's life, okay? Or the embodied mind's life, you know? Now, right now I'm speaking to you, I have a singular objective body. But if I was to consider how many subjective bodies I can have, it could be endless. It's evocational. That means when you close your eyes and you think of yourself, you can close your eyes and think of another idea and notice that idea is happening where the self is, where the attention that is identifying as the self is. One thing that the best way I can explain it really is from the Bhagavad Gita, where they use this metaphor of the soul being inside a chariot, the chariot driver being the mind, the horses being the senses, the sensory realm, perceptions, domain, and whatnot. Excuse the extra noises, guys. Now, if we take that analogy, in the Gita it says that when the mind, not your body, when the mind can't manage the body, the soul poetically intervenes. What does that mean? That means underneath that, this engine of image generation of the world through a rational or irrational lens, or abstract or real sense, there are moments in life where you will feel something is moving that is neither an object or a subject. And at best, I feel you can consider it your whole moment. That means we have been thinking we are individuals. It's as if we said we're thinkers, we are, or we're thinking, we are the thinking king, we are the king of thought, think king. So by the declaration of our egos as the king of thought, we have solidified ourselves in a certain reality. The mind is very multidimensional. And if somebody asks you where did language come from, we say the human mind. And when you look at language, look at how many ways words can be used. Look at how many ways letters can create words. You see, it's either we're looking at everything as if it's, oh, look at this cute, adorable one world, or it's this multidimensional system in many ways, you know? And higher dimensional intelligence, who says it has a body? Who says it needs to be a body? The more we notice that as the energy increases, the more dynamic the person becomes. So that means I feel if human beings reach the peak of their energetic existence, they actually won't be existence. Not that the body can't contain, but that the self needs to impose a new body. What does that mean? That means when you want to pick up a heavy object, let's say you want to pick up a heavy object, okay? You have to tighten the muscles of your back and your core before moving the object. A lot of people who their muscles get injured when moving stuff around, especially as you get older, you know, the person thinks they're young and then they move something and it hurts their back, right? The reason is because the muscle, you have to take care of the muscle before lifting the weight. So similarly, it's as if you need a new archetype to do a new action. Because if you didn't do the new, if you could, if it wasn't a new action, it wouldn't be a new archetype. It would be the same archetype, you know. The multidimensionality of the mind, when the, let's say poetically, when the soul, the person in the chariot, comes and the chariot driver falls asleep and the horses, the sensory bodies going astray, the soul comes and taps on the shoulder of the chariot driver, the mind. So in the traditional sense, right now, it's for us, we're like known bodies wondering about unknown minds. But back in the day, there was a sort of a a trio. There was a trio where there was a relationship of a known phenomena with a semi-known and semi-unknown phenomena. What does that mean? That means it's like back in the day, consciousness or life was like gas, liquid, solid. Like for me, gas, liquid, solid, those states seems to be the inspiration of these metaphysical angles. You know, that means when we are solid, we're like, that's matter. When we're liquid, we're like, what is this mental, this stuff, activity? And then when we are gas, when we have reached the invisible, we're no longer defined by the visible. And that will happen, and a lot of beings fear it. They fear their own invisibility because their whole life and meaning is based on the visibility. Let me tell you, in this life, you have to prepare your hands for holding stuff and also letting go. And letting go internally is really the testament to the strength of character. When we think about the multidimensionality of the mind, or when we think about the psychology, the traditional angle people had, there's this Sufi saying. It's called, actually, it's not a Sufi saying, it's a Sufi hadith, but it's unauthenticated. So that means certain people feel it's real, certain people feel it's not. But the idea is that um, in this hadith, there was a, what do you call it? There was a saying where it's as if God is saying, I was unknown. and I wanted to be known, so I created the world to know myself. You know, that's what the Sufis entertain. Because character becomes the reality of it. You know, it's right now we're thinking we're thoughts, so our action is immobilized. What does that mean? That means the same way a person goes to sleep and your body produces this chemical. I don't know what it's called, but I don't know the name of it, but your body produces this chemical in your system, so that when you dream of running, when you're running in your dream, you don't actually run in your bed. So it puts the body into a sort of paralysis. Now, I find that our subjective lives, our inner lives, can also take the significance of the outer life. For example, when I look at myself when I was younger, I was a very athletic kid, you know. I wanted to be a soccer player, believe it or not. And but after some point, I noticed the same excitement I would find in, for example, soccer, getting the ball and running towards the goal. I found it in a conceptual domain where I realized the goals are multidimensional. That means when a philosopher is wondering about how far we have looked at the world as minds, it's like a soccer player about to hit that penalty shot, you know? Life is incredibly multidimensional, but we can't accept it because we've built a civilization based on individuals. You know, it's hilarious. When you look at it, it was as if there was a time people didn't have the word for God. There was no word for God, no concept, you know? And then the concept emerged, and people thought it was an object. People worshipped their own gods. You know, there was a pantheistic situation where people were worshipping nature. Then what happens is that the idols are slapped out of our hand in history. We stop worshipping an object. So what happens then? We move on to subjects. We move on to revelation. Words become the leader of the inner life of man. Now Mr. Within in 2020 is telling you somebody has come now and is trying to slap the language in your hand. You know, the language that you have been worshipping. You know, and this is not to reduce who you are as a person. It is to suggest actually that you are more than you think you are, that no thought could have ever been you in this life. And so people have been, in a precious way, you know, calling each other names. Pun intended when I say that, you know. Only to realize language was never us. It is our tool. Just because you use a hammer to hammer a nail to the wall for a painting, you are not the hammer just because you use it. And just because there is the phenomenology of thought, ideology, language, and whatnot doesn't mean your language. And what that means is, guys, listen to this. In philosophy, Rene Descartes' I think, therefore I am, was misinterpreted on a massive level, and people thought they were thoughts. That's not how Rene Descartes meant it. Rene Descartes meant it that when you went through a sort of radical doubt, you came to the conclusion that the doubter can't be doubted. So Rene Descartes had found a clue in reality through a method of doubting something that can't be doubted, the one igniting the energetic meaning to the moment. So I want you to just consider the fact that we were worshipping idols, now we worship ideas. And we worship ideas as ourselves, even. It's very extreme. And when that becomes too intense, or when the person worships an idea too long, they have literally committed their life force to that idea, so they are defined by it. What does that mean? That means you cheer for the team you've put your money on. You've put, and your money, poetically, I mean the experiences of your life. Now, I'm going to tell you something about the time of idol worship. I'm going to tell you a story, and it's a story that comes to us from one of the Abrahamic religions, from an Islamic context. And so, in Islam and Christianity, and of course Judaism, but I would say there is the archetype of the fallen angel, which is the devil. And so the word evil, I think, even comes from that. But like the idea is that there is forces of resistance. Okay, now the story I'm going to tell you is about this religious guy back in the day. Back in the day, think of the 6th century, early 6th century. And the story begins with this guy, this Muslim man, who is walking, and he suddenly sees a bunch of people are bowing and praying to a tree. They're worshiping a tree. He sees there's a tree, there's like a bunch of people circled around it, and they're worshiping the tree. And this man sees this, and of course, the religion had sparked during that time. So the religious idea was that there's only one God, and there's no other God than Him. So a lot of wars that was inspired out of religion was a war of truth's accuracy in the eyes of man. So, anyways, this Muslim man, who's a monotheist, he sees these sort of people worshiping this tree, and he suddenly is like, no, there's one truth. There isn't, you know this tree is not God. So he gets a axe, and he goes to cut the tree. Now what happens in that situation? As he goes to cut the tree, the story says Shaitan, the devil or whatever, through human form, through the form of a human, arises in front of this man and says, I am Shaitan, and I will not let you cut this tree. And this man says, there's only one God, one true God, I'm going to cut this tree. And the worshippers are just blindly worshiping the tree. The Shaitan, in the human form, fights with this man who believes there's one God and people shouldn't worship a tree. Shaitan's like, no, I want these people to continue worshiping the tree. And so there's a fight. Okay, and remember this point, Shaitan appeared in a human form. So the guy goes into a physical fight and beats this guy. And he beats this guy. He beats Shaitan's human form. And right there, last second, and this is, you're going to see the moral of the story kind of building up from this point. Shaitan, as he's defeated on the ground, he looks at this guy and he attacks his character. What does that mean? That means he says to the guy, listen, man, don't cut this tree. I will put 3 gold coins behind your door every night. Just don't cut this tree. And the guy is about to cut the tree, then he sees he needs the money, and he's like, shit. He's like, you better put the gold coins there. And so he goes. Now, he goes home at night and waits. After midnight, he hears a knock. He goes and opens the door. There's nobody there, but there's 3 gold coins behind his door. He picks up the gold coins. He's like, okay. Then the next night, he waits. It becomes midnight again. There's a knock. He opens the door. There's 3 gold coins. Then, the third night, he waits. There is no knock. He opens the door even, and he sees there's no gold coins. And he's like, what is this? I'm going to go cut the tree. So the next day comes, and he gets the axe, and he's going there to cut the tree. Suddenly, Shaitan, the devil appears in human form to this. And the man gets into a fight again. The human form of Shaitan says, "I won't let you cut the tree." Same ordeal as the beginning, and then they get into a fight. This time, the same human form of Shaitan is stronger than the guy, and he beats the guy down. And the guy's on the ground, and he's like, "What is this? How is it like 4 days ago I was way stronger than you?" He's saying this to Shaitan, and he's saying, "I was way stronger than you. How is it now you're stronger?" And this is the moral of this religious context story. It's not a story from religion, but it's in the religious context. Shaitan says to the guy, "The first time you came to cut the tree, you were doing it for the truth of your reality. The second time, you were doing it for your desire." That means there was an honesty, there was a sort of uh, power to honesty, you know? And so in that story, it was that sometimes in life, there are certain situations that attack the person's character. And so this is where knowing thyself, as we are, as we hear in Christianity, or as there's another saying, the kingdom of heaven is within you, becoming acquainted with that is very important in this life. Now, regardless of the ideological perspective, because on some level we can feel truth of reality is an experiential phenomenon, so it doesn't matter what ideology you have, the ideas, all ideologies are like tuning you like a radio channel, you know? That means it's not the idea that's actually important, it's how the attention emerges in the moment. So the multidimensionality of the inner realms and the outer realms is fascinating because we are basically defined by our biological position. That means even if we want to get hyper spiritual about things, we need a body to see beyond it. Do you see what I mean? That means without existence, experience has nothing to experience. So we can say the purpose of experience was to exist. That means potentially from an experiential, energetic field of being, we arise as waves of manifest creaturehood. There's many ways to look at the world, just like you can see many different shapes in the clouds. I once looked at the clouds and I remember guys, this is incredible. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you this because I saw a face in the clouds and I chose it as for the the cover of my poetry book. One of my poetry books. I'm going to show it to you right now. It's called The Polished Ones. The Polished Ones is the first poetic work I wrote on this planet. I'm going to say on this planet, but I'd say on in this life. And there's a poem in this called the Temple of Stars, guys. This poetry book is brings back memories. Here, guys, check this out. Anybody who, if you just click on this link, I just want to show you the face that I took a picture of. You can see on the cover of the book the picture of a face. I took a picture of it in the sky and made it the cover of the book. Okay? So you see, physical reality is like clay, and the mind is sculpting itself in accordance to how the attention moves. Now, when we come to wonder if the attention it's honestly the whole cause and effect thing. If you see yourself having an immaterial cause, then the effect will feel like a simulation. If you feel yourself having a material cause, then all immaterial abstraction feels like a simulation. So if we think we're creatures of mind, matter is going to feel like a simulation. If we consider we're creatures of matter, the mind is going to feel like a simulation. So believe it or not, whatever your philosophy in this life, it's all appearing as a simulation, because we're declaring one side of the spectrum as a reality. What does that mean? That means if we think the origin of our nature was good, then bad is going to be a simulation. We'll be like, all human beings are good. What is this bad we've been seeing? Or if we consider we're all bad by nature, we'll look at the world and we'll be like, look at this, we're all fucking bad animals. Like, there's no good in this world. Do you see, based on how you see the beginning, it suggests how you meet your end. And the whole point of mysticism is you experientially become acquainted with your origin as a being, as an energetic being right now. It's like, little did the listener know they were energy being conscious on a pebble in a light beam. Some people love the world so much that they have to let go of themselves because love has no shape. Love is a shapeless joy. Love is when the heart roars for the moment of its life. I'm going to read for you guys one poem from this polished ones, the first poem I wrote. And it's not as intense as the others, but you can see how this is the first poem I wrote. It's called White Rose. The breath is the grip of Gaia's soft hands. A white rose is held, watered by the eternal sound. Fingers of light sent to hold you so close. A river of fears will wash off your thorns. You are always embraced, beloved. Now you can let go. I'm going to read the second one too. The second one is called... Actually, I'll read for you the third one. It's called Ink, Ink of the Stars. We are the pen dipped in the ink of the stars. There is no effect without the right cause. Held by a hand only seen from the heart. No pen can stand alone, grasped by the one. Let go of your words. Feel the kind grip of your guides. The page is turned, a blank sheet smiles. Showered in light, dive deep into the eternal sun. What else can we do? We can dive deep into the eternal sun of our life. Imagine an advanced civilization. Imagine a species that became so smart that through intelligence it eradicated the inefficiency of violence and war. What if we became a species that realized if we were patient and if we were united and if we looked at the global problems, there would be enough creativity, That means Albert Einstein knew one day there will be a world where many Albert Einsteins roam this earth, whether digitally capable or not. That means I find it that whoever you are, whatever you know, whatever life you have lived, hold it in the honor of all the human beings that have come and gone so far. It's as if we cannot ignore, the fallen. It doesn't matter if it's theological or not. That means, of course, theology is a totally different narrative. When the person is introduced to life through the religious narrative, it's a dissension. We have fell from somewhere greater. But when you look at it from a very secular, materialistic standpoint, evolution was an ascension. We arose, you know? So it doesn't matter for me. It's like some people can see they fell from the heavens. Some people can feel they're ascending towards the heavens, spaceships beyond the atmosphere. But for me, it's like one of my favorite comedians is Sebastian, what's his last name? Maniscalco or something. And he has this thing in his comedy where he says, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Like he says something like that. And it's exactly like that, where you're kind of looking at this world and language and the position of everything that has emerged as an elemental property, and you're like, "World, what are you doing?" Let me tell you what's going on this planet. We have had no choice but to systemize reality. Michel Foucault, this French philosopher, wrote about how the process of institutionalization changed the environment of the psyche. That means back in the day, the king had a jester. Back in the day, there was a sort of acceptance of various kinds of behavior that weren't yet seen as good or bad. But once you put a moral system on something, then you can judge it. Once you look at a person and say they're good or bad, that is equivalent to racism, you can say. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Because it's a judgment of image from one world. That means when you speak to a person, it's as if their wisdom is based on how aware they are of what they see, and how aware they are what they see is different than what others see, because I'm telling you, human beings are not designed to be too close to one another. That means I think the healthiest relationships, it's a balance. It's like you at times are a bird that is flying in the sky, but then you come back on the branch. There's many moments in life where the person has to go on walks, lonely, not lonely, but walks. The person has to walk alone. And that is the best skill. I honestly think if you can get comfortable with energy, regardless of its story, you, dear listener, are living potentially 1,000 to 2,000 years ahead of your time if you are energetically living. That means Tai Chi masters, they're equivalent to aliens for me. For me, if there was an alien that came, I wouldn't be like, "Get me the best, translator, best linguistic professor." I'd be like, "Get me the best Tai Chi master, you know, get me a bunch of like Zen masters meditating in front of this extraterrestrial to kind of feel what's going on." Because there's so many dimensions to life that surpass the storification of it. You see, we are creatures that we have owned things. Right? We say like, you own your jacket, you own your name, you own your whatever. You own your sight, you feel. But when you realize nature is not designed to be owned, it's designed to be used. But using something doesn't mean necessarily you own it forever, or it's something that becomes like a loop, you know. I feel every person on this planet can access this method of managing their life in accordance to looking at all the phenomenology in their life and considering its dimensions. okay? And there's different ways you can perceive dimensions, based on different alphabets or different languages. So I could say I like to perceive it geometrically, believe it or not. That means I sit here and I speak in English to you. But a lot of my inner realms, they're not language that's moving. It is geometrical shapes where by the instant of their observance, they are meaning. Just like how a person looks at the word, the letters in the word water. Okay, if you look at them on a letter basis, they make no sense. It's like, why are those letters beside one another? But when you see that those letters become an image, so the whole thing about our minds and the multidimensionality is the relationship of how we're considering something external in front of our eyes to have an inner image. So I'm saying that it may be very well the case that you are a multidimensional being, energetically and experientially. So here's the thing, energy is simultaneously being conscious experience of existence. So energy in one way is displaying itself as this experience that is like on and off, because your body continues to exist when you sleep, but your experience of yourself doesn't in deep sleep. Do you know? So we have never been, it's strange because it's like physical reality. You require to plant the seed, water it for months, and then you see a tree. But when it comes to the mind, you can instantly evoke like the geometry of a supernova. You could instantly imagine a star imploding, for example. It's like instant. You didn't have to plant the seed and wait until that imagination appeared, you know? And so I feel if the person can find some distance with language, they can become a great observer of the language that has been defining them. Remember this, in the movie Matrix, the concept of the Matrix, the simulation of the Matrix in the movie was that this simulation could on a computer screen be seen with design. That means I wouldn't be surprised if in we can totally see aliens doing that, you know, as if all of human life on this planet is just codes on a screen on for some alien who's gone to work in the Andromeda galaxy. It's like another day of looking at humans. Yeah, this was something I wrote in my science fiction. I have been acquainted with the multidimensionality of the mind, and the multidimensionality of the mind is attention. So just like how you need to practice moving your physical body to be able to move it, let's say do a backflip or be a breakdancer or whatever, similarly, you need to also practice observing instantaneously how you're being attention to yourself. And if you do this honestly, as if you're on an island and there's nobody there to give you instructions or to check your word or work or to say you're wrong or right, there is no one. When you are alone, that's when you have found your private office with the cosmos. That means, trust me, I've had moments where I've like said poetry out loud, and I've had moments where it's been inner poetry. That means I've just silently sat and the mind has been speaking. It's as if what's fascinating is as I sit here right now and I'm speaking to the audience, there is this, imagine poetically, that inner cinematic language is like a speaker. So it's as if like I am, it's like the chariot driver is relaying the instruction of the person in the chariot to how the horses should move. Because really, if you want to become a master of the physical realm, master doesn't mean like blind tyrant, okay? Master means a being that in any art form has experienced enough that the spirit of the art form has embraced them. The silence is a shelf that holds a lot of knowledge. You know, you are wise when you can notice the emptiness in any room you step. And that's when compassion comes. I don't feel compassion for people just because they're weak and, the person's weak, let's love them to a better place. No. I see compassion because I see that every human being is in an incredibly mysterious and strange existential situation. That means I have seen, trust me, like I've seen even the people who you would feel they are like the caveman with the biggest stick. But you know what I have seen? I have seen the fear behind the big ego. And when you see the fear behind the big ego, you just have to wait long enough and the big ego breaks itself. Because it has fear. Because fear is why we leave the world. Fear that it's an illusion, fear that it's a lie, fear that it's wrong, fear that it's going to end, fear that it's unknown. Who has allowed fear in the room of our minds? Or as Hafiz would say, the Sufi mystic poet from 700 years ago, he says fear is the cheapest room in the house. I would like to see you living in better conditions. So be fearless because you are alive once. It doesn't even, there's no logical reason even to the fear because it's once, you know? And so when we treat, right now it's strange, the strategy toward overcoming the issues of civilization 1.0, which is our current civilization, right now I have concluded, and this was a deep question that the Logos one, I felt I was blessed that the Logos answered for me, that I wondered what was the next phase of human beings. It's like, what is this? Are we all just sitting, waiting for cyberspace to become our savior? Like, what is the next phase? And I asked myself, and I was looking at it from the most rational perspective that I felt my mind could endure. I saw that the solution was not rational, and I broke down in tears. I broke down in tears where we are trying to make the world rational, but the solution is that regardless of the most rational activity, you could be the greatest scientist right now, having conducted the most accurate experiment, but you are bringing it back to a society that has emotions. And because we have emotions, it is the relationship of the mind animating itself in accordance to the unknown. You know, sometimes you may find tears on your face only to see the heat of your anger burn them away, evaporate them. You know, an anger for not inefficiencies wrong. Anybody who punishes the wrong, you don't understand. There's something in this life where it's like anything you touch, it sticks to you. Any type of experience you simulate in your conscious experience, it will echo. So think of your mind as this empty hall. Any sound made by the external realm can echo in there. You know. Anyways, the thing I realized was emotional stability right now is more important than intellectual precision. This is very crucial. Do you see what I'm saying to you? Emotional stability. Emotional stability is what is needed. Now, what does that mean? That means we don't need logic is not can't see certain dimensions of the psyche. The psyche is oscillating between the known and the unknown. Again, as I say this often, the poet Rumi said a bird needs two wings to fly, and the bird doesn't pay attention to its wings. It needs them though. So the mind requires chaos and order, duality, so that a character in a story can fly. A character can fly in a story. But the character is not meant to just be zoomed in on its wings. The bird doesn't look at its wings when it flies, it looks ahead. So you become content with chaos and order and you look ahead. And then, hopefully, if you have cared for nature, you will hear her as well. And then you will live for your future, which is the effort of your past. That is it. That means, isn't it silly? Isn't it silly? 8 billion people planning for their futures. But if there was an advancement of the psychological position, if we could totally, like, you know what I want to see? I want to see the future generations running into the education halls of the educational system, and not for there to be cultural, or sorry, not social protests of identity, political correctness. The energy of all those people is going to the wrong thing. Do you know? That means if you're one of those people who wants to judge something in this world, to judge how systems haven't updated. Don't judge something new for the future too much. Do you know? Because imagine aliens come here on this planet, and imagine the first human child that was the child's father was an alien. Imagine there in, like, I don't know, in my science fiction, aliens, which is set in the year 5025, aliens not only have integrated on the planet, but the way aliens appeared on the planet in my sci-fi novel is incredible. I don't know, maybe I'm boasting, but what it is new. I would say it's new. The reason was that the aliens appeared through the mythologies of different cultures. That means, I'll tell you something phenomenal that will happen in the future when cyberspace, virtual reality really starts getting off the ground. Let me tell you what will happen. We will animate our legend. We will live in our mythologies. I'm telling you, this will happen in the future. Our mythologies on a cyberspace level will become inseparable to reality. So what does that mean? That means you could be a guy going to work, coming back home, imagine putting your, like old school, putting your trench coat and briefcase and hat on the hanger, and you come and sit in front of the TV with a beer in your hand, and you put on these virtual reality goggles, and you have become one of the Greek gods. Imagine you have become Apollo, and you're chilling with Zeus in cyberspace. So you see, man has, it's strange. It's as if there is the seed of a god planted in the conscious entity. And what does that mean? The seed doesn't mean it's God. It just means the urge to become a conscious controller of the whole moment is there. And so, have we really so easily dismissed the unknown? Did we really make the abstract seem so much like a bedtime story that we forgot that all our modern theories and philosophies are still in the abstract? That means I can understand there are good actions and bad actions, but it doesn't mean there is good and bad people. Guys, I need a quick pause. I'll be right back. Like a couple minute intermission, actually. I'll be back. Okay. All right, guys. I'm back. I had to relocate. It should be okay now. It's very obvious. We have not feared the singular, that's why we can easily be it. We have feared the multidimensional, that's why we cannot be it. We have feared a relationship beyond the past, and anytime you fear that, you deny the future. So guys, I'm going to do something interesting that I haven't done before in these talks. I mean, I've done this before actually in these talks, but not recently. There's this book I wrote, I believe it was in 2015. I started writing it. It's still incomplete, and it's a series of essays, and the whole book is called The Source of Language. And so in front of each chapter, I've put, what do you call it? I've put 3 quotes from different people in history. So I'm going to read for you chapter 10, which is titled "Live in a which the entry it's a collection of essays, and it's called "Live in a Reality of Allowance." So it's a collection of these essays, entries I wrote, each standing on their own, not relevant per se to the one before it. So the first three quotes are, I've put it for this chapter, chapter 10 in The Source of Language, Live in a Reality of Allowance. The first is from Hafez. Hafez says, run, my dear, from anything that may not strengthen your precious budding wings. Then Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore says, love is the only reality, and it is not a mere sentiment. It is the ultimate truth that lies at the heart of creation. Rabindranath Tagore, Hafez was the quote before was from Hafez, Sufi mystic from 700 years ago. Rabindranath Tagore, Indian polymath. And the last quote is from Terence McKenna. What we call reality is in fact nothing more than a culturally sanctioned and linguistically reinforced hallucination. So high five to Terence. I'd forgotten about that quote, but yeah, it's a linguistically, look at his word choice. Terence McKenna says what we call reality is in fact nothing more than a culturally sanctioned, that means behaviorally limited based on how culture has evolved, and linguistically reinforced. If we don't have a narrative, an ethos, it's like how would our visions be subjective if they're not in a story format? So now to the essay. It's like so keep this in mind, guys. I wrote this in 2015. Live until you are the beyond. Spend enough time with yourself until the truth of all nature is found here and now. Who are you being right now? Question mark. Ask this until all have become just like now. Our civilization is just a single brick for the greater civilizations to come. You are more than an accumulation of memory. Do not doubt the divinity of the moment that comes and goes on its own. Confront also the true nature of all phenomena in this universal sector that you have spontaneously sprouted into manifest form within. What is more beautiful, a field of flowers or the self-awareness of the field of activity of the knower within that could never be worded? So, okay, let me slow down there. So I'm saying, what is more beautiful? A field of flowers, imagine just the flower field, or the self-awareness of the field of activity of the knower within that can never be worded. That means there's an unspeakable event that surpasses any, like language can't contain it, that is occurring as you. A purposeless purpose is grand in a world of cyclical ignorance. Nature is not wrong. It is just that if the moment was called destiny, it would know better. You are the source of language. No mask can hide your undoable, unified nature. Wash your face in a morning that has always been now. You are a moment of being. Never forget it. Have you noticed you live each day once? Because we're looking at time and space through a segmented categorical evaluation, we have to wonder how, in quotations, and what, in quotations, is the philosophy of language not revealing about direct experience that many mystics, yogis, Zen master, Buddhas, and just that inspiration has revealed. Do you see? We must realize, are we treasure revealers of a material mountain-like world? Or are we treasure revealers of the essence and the origin of the spark of our consciousness that the moment we open our eyes in the morning, we have opened all existence into being? It's no little thing being alive. So it's as if each day lives and dies. The moment you open your eyes, it's as if a being has come into the world. And the moment you close it, it's as if this being has gone. Do you see? I don't know. And so it seems, rather than us just living one life, each time we blink, we're living a new universe of thought. So we can say that the ability of the imagination is a multiversal, natural, intuitive presence that once you realize the nature of your reality and you're sincere and have, selfless devotional service to the absolute and the core of what you are, the world will open up. not just the waves of seas and prophecies. Every moment is a reunion with the love of the cosmos that is manifested into an intelligence that can look in the mirror and be like, yo, I'm not a person alone in this world. I am a universe happening. That experiential vastness is beyond the poet's pen. Who we are is a transcendental absolute intelligence of an emptiness that was already being what it was. Life is easy if you don't make it hard. Life is easy if you don't make it hard. As if simplicity is the building block of complexity. It's as if simple events in your life build that complex story of who you were and what it all meant, you know? I feel like reading chapter 22. Let me see. There's a lot of entries in this. 22. Don't tell me it's the golden. No, it's not the. Yeah, 17's golden drop. Okay. 22. Guys, I'm just scrolling. Hang on. I'm trying to scroll the page with mindfulness. Okay. Okay, chapter 22. The quotes of it are actually missing in this PDF that I've opened. But anyways, I'll read the chapter. It's very small. Chapter 22, House of the Birds. Did you know the House of the Birds is made from sky? You're already in the house of the self-realized. That is this moment. A God-conscious man has no enemies or friends. All is the self that is being the presence of the present right now. Be so free that you have always been, for there is always more to what is here and now than just being a yogic Bear Grylls. Beyond thought, life never needed to go anywhere. Existence has no location, for it is what allows location. The lotus-born are never concerned about kissing lotus feet. In the heart of hearts of all that is, be the joy of being. That is already being joy. Strength comes from within. Power was never about control. Enlightenment is God remembering itself through an individual idea. Life is collectively happening and in a very interesting way, multidimensionally kept. If imagination is considerable, there must be an existence to cover. A selfless man sees much in the world of the selfish. Fly beyond the ignorance of death when in the moment your wings are made of eternal life. And that's the entry 22. Let me see how many entries this has. I'm going to let one person choose the next number. Let's go with how many entries? Actually, guys, this chapter is entitled, like, it doesn't have a number yet. I don't know. I haven't positioned it in the book, but I'm just going to read it as the last thing for this and then get back to the title. So the chapter is written, Are our minds open? Question mark. So the essay begins. We must develop, in quotations, strong cultures with the duty of clarity and the compassionate collective wisdom of the species. Strong cultures will be the catalysts and foundations for change. First, the person becomes self-aware, then the culture becomes self-aware, then the society becomes self-aware, then the nation becomes self-aware, then the world becomes self-aware, then the solar system becomes self-aware, then the galaxy becomes self-aware, then the world becomes self-aware, then the edge of conception and the inconceivable becomes self-aware, then the moment returns to its natural state. Once the whole moment is truly witnessed to be real as a whole moment. Once the lotus on your forehead has opened like the spark of a galaxy, through the authorization of the heart of hearts, there will be a transcendence of individual consciousness into collective consciousness, through a self-dissolving remembrance. What this implies is that consciousness is beyond a changing state of reference. The attention to light is faster than the speed of light. The eyes of all types of governance must consider the inner dimensions and visions of man to be the inspiration of the outer. The self is made of senses. The self of selves that is the witness never had senses. What moves when you don't? How are you the remnants of a changing world when you are observing the change from a state where all localities and probabilities are potentially real? The mind is fascinating, is a fascinating aspect of this universe, made only to discover itself within all that is the reality of evolution. You are beyond evolution. That is how you know you're evolving. Is energy only present through matter, or does the world have more to tell? An unborn wisdom shall find you, and you shall be absolute before ideas ever had to be there. What whispers of insight will be passed on through the eons, guided by the grace of eternity? Stop living like a dying man, and wake up to your moment as the eternal focus of the cosmos into the beauty and possibilities of individual manifestation. The source of language is an insight within ourselves. Externality is an internal phenomena. The internal phenomena is beyond location and the suppositions of a place to be. You have the guidance of the planet and the intuition of destiny. When a book becomes a mirror to your own mind, God is here and now. The intelligence of all intelligence is so intelligent that we never could not be. The body knows its destination. The mind needs to discover the true nature of its design. Study the growth of intelligence within all sectors of reality, wherever you are as a being. Self-awareness always serves. When two or more people look at the same thing, it can be said that there are multiple dimensions in one. What can truth say when silence kept it all? Once the external nature of reality has been contemplated, naturally the interest of the being would develop into and wonder about the true origin of intelligence. We're not only wondering about what is the source of the movement within our eyes, but within the eyes of all worlds. The moment is the great guide of all separate realities, bound to their own consequences of how the toes entered the water. The source of language has nothing to do with language. Language can be said to be the playfully void, endlessly growing imagination of God. Even though many consider all ideas are man-made, what does that mean for the idea of man? Is the void too much to confront with glorious unknown awe? Could the moment be divine beyond you? How can you be a man before the concept of man has any meaning? Could you drive a car before the wheel was made? Most of our lives are lived through the intentions of self-created desires, projected from a subjective past that wants to influence the objective future that it can never know, for the future changes the present as much as the past does. Is time a beautiful illusion? Destiny's dance moves Destiny's dance moves are very multidimensional. But all basks in the oneness of the intelligence of your moment. Could a poet have thrown a telescope faster than Zeus's lightning back at the clouds before the revelation of dawn is the end of the sentence? Reveal dawn like the mistress of night. Is space a bottomless mystery? Function as natural presence and let go as an idea with any need to grab onto anything. When you believe in something, you're accepting the value of a certain range of imagery-based experience to be more valuable than other ranges of existential perception and sensitivity. However, because you made a choice, all the other possibilities simultaneously come about. Failure is a sign of success. For success cannot exist without the benchmark of failure. Your life is beautifully fascinating, and ideas were never in the driver's seat. Have you noticed parallel realities are only of interest to those who are first in a reality? The moment is too pure for words. I shall do no injustice. Silence is great wisdom. Is death alive? Question mark. Should we discredit symbolism for never being able to replace the actual intensity of any direct experience? What is your idea on an idea? Can you feel emptiness opening its wings through paradise's greatest intention? As all skies realize they are one, are our eyes covered by ideology? Is the multidimensional vastness and infinitude of the mind properly acknowledged by society's terms and objective view? Are light bulbs being taken to the guillotine in a world of dim candles? Truth requires honor and trust to journey. Truth requires honor and trust to journey on through the generations and centuries. My children will one day read this book just to see they have only read their own minds. Greatness is within us all. Life is administered as one whole intelligence and activity. The intuition of all mystics shall roar again into the abidance with the greater intelligence of this natural sector of this universe. Before any case is closed, are our minds open? The essay ends with a question. Are our minds open? All right, guys, somebody says number 12. Let's see what that is. Let me get some next level symphony music in the background in my headphones. Number 22. I think I read. Oh, sorry. What was the number people said? 12. Okay, let's see what 12 is. Okay, the number 12 is called The Ego Speaks Too Much. Okay, guys, this is number 12. The ego speaks too much. If someone's just tuning in, I'm reading something from a book I wrote in 2015 called The Source of Language. Sorry, not 2015, maybe the year after. I don't know, but it was from a couple years ago. The ego speaks too much. When sincerity and peacefulness of the mind are found to become one, the true devotee of life's endless direction becomes the god of one's own imagination, just to see the void smiling beyond veils. As thought rebels against the thinker, inefficiency will ensue that will just slightly influence you from the true path of self-realization you already know. The garden of paradise is filled with many beautiful flowers. The intelligence of vision blooms everywhere. The presence of life is tolerant and whole. To be direct and complete, you must, as an I thought in quotations, observe yourself into your natural divine self and overall presence. On such a mountain peak, your true nature shall gift you with the remembrance of how you have always been your own blessing. Study the mind until God remembers God before God needed to be God. Study the mind until God remembers God before God needed to be God. Of course, these are just words, and I'm allowing expression to happen as if nature was something to never ignore or move away from. Some have said 4 billion years of evolution has not been enough for the ape's advanced step. Others were never interested in the monkey business, going the wrong direction. As it is observed, we can choose to see the world within a frame of design or not. Some artworks are chaotic, but the imagery of accepted reality in your mind is like the edge of your ego, that like an iceberg reveals only a little bit of what it is. That means imagine if you feel you have an ego right now, or if you feel you're an I thought, that I thought, imagine it's like the tip of the iceberg. That means you don't see a lot of what you are actually. If reality was multidimensionally void in the beauty of cosmic intelligence, the source of language has already responded to how the expression is to be received. A drop does not have any questions for the ocean that it is being. Do not focus your attention on what does not serve you. Prioritize self-realization like a father that is reuniting with his son, spelled S-U-N here. Reuniting with his son, the body of the soul, in quotations, ego, and the mind's void, sorry, not in quotations, in brackets, ego, and the mind's void, in brackets, space. So, okay, I'll read that again. Prioritize self-realization like a father that is reuniting with his son. The body of the soul, ego, and the mind's void, space, cannot withstand the grand majesty of self-realization stream, that once you are in time, once you are in tune with existence, non-existence could never touch the eternal moment. That is beyond the expression of a cause and effect story-like experience. There is no need to fight blindness with blindness. Shine like how the solar system has made you and kept you in your eyes. We are in an era where self-realization matters and shall become a great tidal wave and catalyst for new multidimensional renaissances inspired by the now to occur. Just like many applications, the application requires to be updated. Shall a loud mouth turn into the silence of consciousness? Here in this book, guys, I've referred to myself like the word Mr.Within here. So just to kind of like add a spice to the book. It says, as Mr.Within has said, we are in many rooms at the same time. What that means is that the planet remembers every memory, every civilization that has spun around itself in the emptiness of space. Reverse engineer all illusions into a moment of truth, either the explorer's clarity or the explorer's confusion. Don't fuse with the reality that is a fusion of cons. Honor your divine moment and let life reveal itself to you, for greatness cannot wait to meet itself beyond ideas. The hammer is heavy and it must be carried for a long time, but it is only needed for an instant of time. Break the hourglass of ignorance. Language should be utilized with the silence of divinity, already acknowledged as origin's origin. The sun does not burn you, the ego does. This unknown accumulation that is you is imposing a static idea, even though it is in a dynamic state. What is greater than words remains so. What is greater than worlds was beyond a clean mirror. It is as if you have become so in tune with nature that your intuition your intuition always has known how to be, and be is both in caps. So it's as if you have become so in tune with nature that your intuition has always known how to be, for the intelligence is naturally being itself. Behind your eyes, you're God's essence. In front of your eyes, you're the creation of the world. There are many pieces to the ultimate peace, spelled P-E-A-C-E. Nature has always smiled through your eyes beyond the demise of a world of hopeful interpretation. Activate your mind by revealing it as your greatest teacher. Who would have thought in this modern age they are their own greatest teacher? And advice to all writers, in quotations, write the book you want to read. So the best book you can read is the one you write. Great vision is self-taught. Intuition is a natural access beyond the door of thought. When you write the book you have awaited a long time to read, when you have awaited to see the face of your mind across the printed page, life will happen as it always has. Such work reveals to the world how the nature of your mind is working. There is no block, no structured linguistic barrier of words defining reality's activity and permission. The design of language must not be used ignorantly. What is the root cause of speech for a person who writes something and wants to also share something? The experiences of the current moment must be communicated fractally onto the page, smoother than the reflection in the mirror of change. Reality requires self-awareness and sincere selfless action, like how social media must be used like watering a plant, and you must focus on the destiny of truth that is this moment is now, and has always been the now. What secret do you feel that has not been shared to you, that this moment of existence and being has not already revealed to you as your moment? Beyond the heavy knees of writing a lowercase t, nature is its own divinity. Perhaps glory is selfless collective beauty and self-realization. Even self-remembrance is a great word to use here. Ask yourself and God shall answer as you. Language could never be like the prophet within your eyes that already knows everything. Just like how the emptiness of the cup, once the tap is open, has the potential to be full beyond the requirement for measurement. A person who writes something wants to share something. As you share your experience of life, and the more truthful and sincere the work is, the more people understand how the book reflects your mind. The mind is an unknown origin of the body's language. A book is a communication to the world around you. What do you have to say? You should confront and communicate. A meditation that shall naturally bloom in your moment, whereas focus enhances on the root cause of all problems, the center of the sky never went anywhere. Study the design of your experiencer, then transcend it. Who feels outed? Who can't accept? Whose inability? Are you separate from life or a part of it? Do you find the intelligence that you are separate from all that is being at once? As if you don't realize you're being part of a universe right now? Human beings are natural expressions of the universal sector. By nature, we are cosmic. True yoga is not about the poses. It is about the selfless devotional service to the absolute intelligence that you are and your moment is being. Oh my God, how long is this essay? It's all being in tune with your moment, and it all happens. The surfboard on the wave of chaos and order is empty. Beyond feet. Why do you think they speak about Bhakti Yoga? The yoga of devotion is the reunion of all worlds into the ultimate. Because those who have truly confronted this life as it is are not concerned about the ideas of this world. They realize experience is something for an idea to navigate. But beyond ideas, there is greater expression. An innate presence beyond the personality's design keeps and is the same primordial wisdom that holds the seer endlessly alive in the eyes of man and every living being within this living universe. A great unified intelligence that is highly unspeakable, but a remembrance that can never be forgotten. You are looking for self-realization. The self is in caps. That means to study the self that you are, and that means listening to your moment of life as it is happening. And then I've done a play of words here, self, real, and then I've put in here. I'm going to just copy paste this. This is how I've written it here. This is how I wrote it. You know, the word self-realization. Self-realization for the writer can mean for one to let the book intuitively happen, like the miraculous genius in the nature, like the miraculous genius in the seed's design and within our open eyes. It is like once you have enough attention and focus, the nature of thought reveals itself. Don't chase the divine butterfly. Let it land on your forehead. Nature doesn't run late. Time is a teacher too. Space is a student of the classroom of mankind's imagination beyond lines of dualistic reference. You are your own righteousness, and patience is required until the ripples on the pond have settled themselves. Clarity is origin. That's like a sentence. Clarity is origin. Find the witness within, for as you are a being within all that is present in the cosmos, you realize, regardless of how raw intelligence was designed in the furnaces of manifestation's origin, what is within you is an omnipresent moment of being. We are living in a divine universe that transcends multiversal and multidimensional ambitions. Access is granted to the willing. Sincerity is the greatest preparation. The wisdom of your heart, your greatest guide. Consciousness is being all that is simultaneously within the moment. How heavy is the light of a changing universe? Once you see the life around you, the whole moment is being all of it, and part of it through a simultaneous elegance and cosmic fortitude. It is so easy. Your book will naturally be written, because you have realized what is within you is within all that is in the moment. Beyond the ignorance of education systems of this world that indoctrinate too much language and its emphasis, the barks of dogma for many can be heard from childhood on. A true free thinker is free beyond thought. Before any voice, the silence is its own only command. We are the stars of God. Nothing can be hidden. There are patterns here beyond the movement of abstract deities. Remind yourself beyond the experience of the edge of worlds. The song of the sage is heard here and now. Be playful with language until self-realization is allowed. That's the algorithm. That's what I know, at least. That sentence, that last sentence, be playful with language until self-realization is allowed, that's the thing. That's the tolerance that many people, even Bertrand Russell, some people consider him the father of atheism, you know? Of course, language is just a viewpoint. People are way more complex than just ideas. But it says, like the last sentence of this says, remember yourself beyond the experience of the edge of worlds. That means we are wondering of an advancement of civilization that if there is fear, we haven't seen our potential. Guys, actually, okay, this other one is small, relatively small. This is the last thing I'm gonna read. Then I think I'm gonna keep some of my voice for the talk. This is crucial because this chapter, it's the chapter right after the one I just read. A chapter I've written here as a chapter, but they're essays. It's essay number 13, and it's titled "How a Child is Treated." And there's I feel there's a cultural sociological insight in this essay, if I remember correctly. Anyways, I'm going to read this as the last thing, and then we're going to get out of this book tunnel, this essay tunnel, you know. So the chapter is called "How a Child is Treated." And just before I begin, we have all been children. It is the most important phase of evolution of the human character. Just saying that before I read the chapter. How a child is treated in life suggests how the child will treat life. Being more than a traveler through energy states, how does language evoke the attention of the transcendental to the self of selves? How does attention, wait, let me read that again. How does language evoke the attention of the transcendental to the self of selves, towards the self of selves? Conceptually, how far have you challenged reality's normal contention? The peace of dissolution is known from within, and the peace, P-E-A-C. How are the eyes receiving reality beyond an idea only justified by sensory perception? Where does a still and formless consciousness have to go in the silence of the universe? No man can reject their true nature. It is usually the other way around. Nature rejects you. Yeah. Beyond opposites, life happens. The escape of illusion is not done on an eternal battlefield. Look at the greatness of this world and walk with it. You must observe the texture of your most direct experiential presence that is already being a moment in this life, including nothing with a capital N. As Matsuo Basho has said, the journey itself is my home. Is your journey beyond concepts already your home? What has society, culture, and ideology not yet acknowledged that you naturally are? Does the ocean fear evaporation or just the drop? The study of the simultaneity of the individual The study of the simultaneity of let me find the line, guys. The study of the simultaneity of individual and collective intelligence is very crucial at this modern time. For the collectivity, individualism is the illusion. For the collectivity, individualism is the illusion. For the individual, collectivism is the dream. Is a reality a coin being flipped beyond language and boxes of time and space? Is the star and its emanation separate? Is starlight cosmic coding in the program of our lives? A journeyer within is remembering all without. An ego is not the problem. Your attachment to the color underneath the transparent glass of consciousness is the problem. Transience is an eternal journey, and eternity the child of the moment. Beauty is the mother of truth, and laughter the ultimate cosmic joy. Death and the beyond in quotations cannot be avoided and must be directly confronted. Love the unknown, and all knowledge shall become the genius of your children. Love the unknown, and all knowledge shall become the genius of your children. Let your grip of life be graceful. The sword of your truth must be ready to slam against the shield of knowledge. For in the battlefield of language's dominion, the armies of truth march with flags weaved by lifeless ideologies. For how far will our transcendental roar run into the ears of a chaos that has forgotten to acknowledge the order it is within? Once omniscient love has emerged as an absolute, the blindness of truth shall be acknowledged through the grace of nature's superior presence, beyond the distraction of time. What are we beyond language and the design of God's mind? That means if you're a religious person, how are you beyond God's mind? You know? What is God, the design of God's mind? That means language is a door into the intelligence and worlds behind the author's eyes. What more of an intimate relationship can exist where the truth of one world stands in the presence of another, in the face of the moment's true nature? Fear does not exist for the enlightened and the self-realized, as the greatest of motivations roar in the hearts of our dying stars. We are the commander of our own vision and the destiny of the heart of hearts. A deep journey marching against the destruction of the will of God's mind. What can man think when thought was never thought? What is taken from the body is untouched in the mind, and what is taken from the mind could never be taken from consciousness. The reality's emergence was allowed through thought's design. Do not let your concepts be ruled by their context, and they shall cease to exist. The subject and object are codependent and need each other to exist. Witness the consciousness that is being the moment, and feel the freedom of the whole universe in your eyes. Your possibilities are limitless. The ride goes on for only a little while. Can man invent a legacy that reinvents him before he opens his eyes again? Will our bittersweet ending be bitter or sweet? Can the night writer write until dawn has turned the page? When our clouds become battlefields, will we then wonder what life means beyond the void? The explosions in the void are silent madness. Our collective sincere engagement our own path. The answer of truth is void to the problem that has not yet looked at itself. Is there a grander audience beyond Brahmaloka? Remind the God of ideas, of the truest self. My words are just words, and your eyes doors to the world. The pure witness cannot be created or destroyed. And so, who has allowed a story to separate the character from the storyteller? Has a highway of stars already been established before time? As the world of the moment changes, you are your enlightenment. You are the timeless witness of the moment. The now has always been here. What can unborn grace say to the mirror of its own creation? And the chapter ends. I wonder what the author was thinking. Oh man. So much eternity in the moment just brings tears to my eyes. So, guys, now back to the talk and to the question at hand. We can see extensions. Like when I think about something, there's always geometrical extensions. So when I think about multidimensional minds in singular bodies, I think about, okay, if we are a multidimensional mind, what is its utility? For now, the utility of the mind seems to be in its own room. If we are multidimensional minds, it means we are imbuing the singular with additional dimensions. So the fact that we can so that's the thing. Yeah, the child, the 8-year-old child that plays with the teddy bear and the teddy bear is its best friend, that's like a mind that has imbued, that has sparked a dimension of animate consideration in the object. Like when pet owners look at their pets and they see the pet like their child, that pet may not have the may love the pet owner, may care, may see the love of feel the love of the pet owner, but the pet doesn't have the ideological constitution, you know. So that means we see the personality in dogs and cats, the same way we see faces in clouds. I mean, that's kind of like it's totally true. You got to keep people alive in your mind, you know? We got to keep the better versions of the world alive regardless of how messed up the earth is. We're like the backup system of the better potential of the species, is our imagination. Imagination is here if reality, excuse my language, but if reality fucks up, imagination's there to be like, I got this. It's a fascinating time, honestly, to be alive. That means when you look back at history, when you look at, for example, the French Revolution, like the people were in such an inefficient way of life that they were like, "What is this? The king's eating chocolate in his palace, and we're dying here." You know what I mean? Like, so there was sort of like you could look back at that history and see like a child born in that era, in that moment in history, in that historic event. You could see its purpose defined by the historic event. Now when I look at human beings just alive casually in 2020, just, on the civilizations progressing, we've become more economical, that we've focused more on education, economy, and entertainment, let's say. These are the three, you can say, pillars for now that are keeping civilization around. That means many people may think TV, of course, is a bad influence, but let me tell you, TV shares with you stories. It is true, it shares a lot of garbage stories, but it's a story sharing device, and the human being needs to receive and express throughout the day. So what does that mean? That means if the mind is multidimensional, the mind needs to experience its like think of it as if it's movement and stillness, and so the body also needs to experience its movement and stillness. I want to share with you a story of Napoleon. And of course, people in different parts of the world have different views for him, about him. And his story is a unique one. But I feel Napoleon was one of the rare human beings that understood the true power of the human mind. You know? That means it's as if like all the law of attraction people, they'll be like, holy shit, Napoleon law of attracted to himself an empire. It's like law of attraction works. Napoleon did it. It's like, how did Napoleon, become emperor? He's like, he kept his eye on the ball. Oh man. There's a story that is inspired out of a painting. Not inspired out of a painting. There's a painting done depicting that moment. I'm going to show you the painting first to give this story historic value. Napoleon Army Palace painting. I think it's by someone named Joseph. Jacques Louis David. There we go. Oh, where is the picture? Where is the picture? No, it's not this. Hang in there, folks. I'm trying to find this picture. The whole thing is, the story is Napoleon has gone back to take the palace from one of the Louis kings. And he's reached the entrance of the palace. There we go, I found it. Nice. All right, so whoever's tuned into the talk, listen to. I want you to look at the wallpaper, and this is the picture I'm talking about. So the story I want to tell you is about Napoleon, and it's about this moment. So what has happened? I mean, this is the closest picture I could find to it. Napoleon has the French army on his side, the French people on his side. Everybody's on his side, and the king is being guarded in the palace by Frenchmen. So Napoleon is like this man going to go take the empire, you know. And what happens is Napoleon suddenly sees his French soldiers are they're pointing guns at the French palace guards, and the French palace guards are sure they have honor to their position. That means a palace guard. That means it doesn't matter how bad the king is. The honor of your position, yeah, surpasses it. You know, this is what I feel a lot of incredible military men and women have established in their inner realms, an ability to maintain a position. That is one thing that I always respected about the military, you know, that they could notice something of value and respect it, regardless of even though the schemes of the whole that even like who knows how the puppeteers are moving everything. But I'm saying like nature is the ultimate puppeteer, and nature is what brings a sort of emergence of thought. But anyways, let's get back to the story. Napoleon suddenly sees his men are pointing guns and Frenchmen pointing guns and Frenchmen. And Napoleon, he cares for France. Do you see? He was a human being that was like, this is my nation, right? He cared for France, but the Louis King was just eating chocolate in his palace. You know? So that Louis King cared about chocolate, Napoleon cared about France. You know? Now I'm not. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to say we're just looking at the kind of trying to see how this figure was in history. Now Napoleon, what happens? He tells his men to stop, to bring down their weapons. The soldiers, the Frenchmen that are on his side. So the palace guards are pointing guns at Napoleon and his men, and Napoleon's men are pointing guns at the palace. Napoleon instantly, with a movement, with a whim of his hand, his what do you call it? The Frenchmen on his side put down their weapons. Now all the palace guards point to Napoleon with their weapons. Napoleon, he doesn't take out a gun. He just opens his jacket, vulnerable, and he shouts. He just shouts, "Who dares shoot their emperor? Who dares shoot their emperor? Who dares shoot their emperor?" You know, like some loud roar, you know? And the Frenchmen realize this is an emperor, not that, you know, little kid eating chocolate in the palace. You know? Do you know what I mean? Like there was something about the human dimension. It's a language we all speak. And when we see there is efficiency, that efficiency is comprehensible. So think of it this way. We're 8 billion human beings. Any of these 8 billion human beings, if they lose more than they win, your civilization is failing. If they are making more inefficient decisions, that means they're like if you know, the best way to like break even your psychology is like 50% efficient decisions, 50% inefficient at most. Try to be there if you can't. But if it becomes more than 50% inefficient, then there has to be most likely relocation or experiential readjustment. So that's the story I wanted to share, guys. And that means Napoleon comprehended different dimensions to what he saw, and he could embody them. He could see that it is okay. We're existential creatures. That means whether you entertain a religious ideology or if you entertain a secular ideology or whatever ideology, you'll see we're allowed to be here. It's as if this stage was made for us. You know, as if in Vedanta they say life is a lila, a play of forces, a play of elements. Now it's as if life is this lila, this play of elements. It's as if the world is the stage and the characters have emerged from the stage. What? You know? That means it's like the moment time is divided into past, present, future, multidimensional. Sorry, like the moment you fragment time, that's multidimensionality right there. But it's a fixed multidimensionality. Now there is an unknown multidimensionality where you become acquainted with this in your inner realms, and then there is an unknown multidimensionality to the outer realms, the potentiality that actually there's other parallel Earths physically, not relevant to the mind even. So human beings can look at their self and be like pretty much all of life is a self in a world, you know, so they can look at this world and be like, whoa, the self is multidimensional, the world is singular, you know, or they could think, oh, I'm singular, the self is singular, the world is multidimensional, and they can get fascinated that way. I feel wisdom will eventually bring the unknown to the face of the unknown. What that means is you're going to come to a point where both self and world are the same in the unknown. But in the known, the self and world arise as dualistic, and at most you can play with the singular or the multidimensional, the infinite, unknown multidimensional. You know, there is many things in life the person can pay attention to, but for the next 30 years, the most important thing is the evolution of the user of language, the user of communication. People, when you look at the self-help industry, I'm like, what are people looking for? Because the idea of self-help is you helping yourself. It's from yourself the help comes. It comes from within you, it doesn't come outside of you, you know? But I realize what it is we're like archetypal programs and we're looking for other ways that programs can be. That means there is something strange like the Transformer movies where the car was like broken down and then looked at another car and just transformed itself to a better car. I feel because we're not thought, as thoughts are coming and going, we are identifying with various ways we feel the energy can express, you know? So on an energetic level, that means if you think this existence is energy, how can energy discriminate against energy? How can you look at someone else and not see them also as energy? It's like I think color discrimination is the illusion. If we're all energy, like if we choose to be materialists, that means it's like everything's a hallucination, really. Free will is the world's magic show, is nature's magic act. We're like, who knew God was a magician? And evolution is the show, magic show. The subject of how evolution has led to an object becoming a subject to itself. This is why I realize they don't teach it in schools, and I've termed it the subjective evolution, and there was a subjective evolution. And that's how language began, you know? But no, we're just, it's just an objective evolution, as if it's like there was nothing profound about a creature being able to notice itself in a mirror. That was a profound moment, because I could totally see how Carl Jung potentially could have come up with this idea of the shadow. He just looked at the early primitive human beings and he was like, what were they visually reacting to? There was the sun's light, so that the creature could worship its own shadow. The creature could feel the shadow is separate from it. The creature can look at a mirror, feel that reflection is separate from it. It's like, how long did it take until there was a sort of clarity, a subjective resolution of the objective form? Victor Hugo has this quote. He says, nothing is more powerful than an idea in which its time has come. I feel the idea which its time has come now is the language threshold. And to study language is incredibly honorable. Intelligence is just language in your probabilities of realities, or how the mind simulates knowledge to itself. It is like as if you're translating things. That means for me, I could look at a phenomena and I could look at it and somehow see a mathematical design to it. That's through a mathematical language of translation. I could look at a phenomena and just see it as geometric without any numerical language even. Even though it's impossible for geometry to not see a certain numerical build up to the actual shapes, but let's say squiggly geometrical lines, you see, as if that's a sort of geometrical translation. Or the person can look at it and just translate it into the word, or whatever. But I'm saying that when we realize that the minds that is like attention being present, and then personality is based on your movement and noise. Literally, you just move. If you're sitting on a chair, you get up from a chair. Do you have the same personality as when you were sitting on the chair? Or is the person now defined with standing up? The personality is defined with a person that's standing up. It's not sitting anymore. Do you see? So, anyways, guys, I'm gonna bring the talk to an end here because I need to breathe. Cranberry juice. Guide me now. um, So yeah, guys, I mean, pretty much in this episode, I feel we are multidimensional. I feel at least we can reduce it to a coin flip, and because we've reduced it to a coin flip, that means that it could be possible. Because it could be possible, it means it's worth preparing for. It's worth considering and engaging. You know? That means for me, when I saw the difference of the religious mindset with the secular mindset, I noticed that it's as if the religious mindset has given itself a subjective permission to experience the inner realms as real. Because it's all about us thinking, is the mind and body being the same moment, or is it two different eyes? Like you can close one eyes and you're just a creature of mind. You can close the other eye and you're just a creature of matter. You know, or is it that both eyes are open and we feel we're a creature of mind and matter? You know? So wonder about the multidimensional. It's your birthright. The multidimensional has been shunned everywhere pretty much. I remember I went to it was a mosque, and there was a religious what's the name, like a fakir there, if I can say it. There was a person there, and I went to the person, and I was raised in Iran in my youth, like until the age of 7, and then came back to Canada, then went back to Iran. Family had to go back to Iran, lived there for a couple of years. So the idea of religion was really, Iran is a country where religion is married to the politics of the nation. So there's a sort of religious law. So what does that mean? That means it's a sort of Orwellian uh, ideologically Orwellian um, religious context to the nation. But anyways, so I asked the person, what does religion say about the soul? What does Islam say about the soul? I asked about the soul. The person said the book says the soul is the secret of God. Man can't know it. So this is why in a lot of religious contexts, when there was a spiritual practice that was outside of the imagery of the religion, it was blasphemy. It's as if, who says you know? God knows only, you know? So there was always a sort of stopping the mind from considering additional dimensions, right? Then I came to the secular arena, and I was like, let me see the imagination of the scientist. And I realized the scientist has become proud of denying the abstraction of the past, not realizing all the potential theories in the future or begin as abstractions. So to be honest, the only thing that has been going on this planet is attention, the texture of attention, and language moving in this attention. Behavior is like a code of language. You know, imagine on a matrix screen. There's a Zen story. uh, Last thing I want to say. In this Zen story, there's a Zen monk living at the edge of the bottom of this mountain. And this thief, he comes back to his, like the Zen monk, Zen master's been living like a minimalist, but he's living alone in this cottage, like near the foot of the mountain. um, Sorry, guys. The Zen master comes home. He sees there's a thief in his house. The Zen master has nothing in the house, literally, like it's like an empty house, you know. And the thief is suddenly, there's that shock of the thief being caught. And the Zen master looks at the thief, and the thief is like, holy shit, what's going to happen? And it's this young kid who's come to steal. And so the Zen master does something strange. And he takes off his shirt, his clothing, and he gives it to the kid. And he's like, you've come all this way. Don't go empty-handed. Here, this is the only thing I own. And he gives the kid, this kid who's come to steal his clothing, which the kid can go sell for some money or something. The kid's like, what? In his mind. And the kid's like, okay, this guy's a fool. He takes the clothing and runs away. He just grabs the clothing from the hand of the guy and runs away. The Zen master just smiles. The kid, as he runs a certain, he gets far from the house, he just looks at the clothing in his hand, and he suddenly wonders, what treasure did that guy have that he could let go of something this poor kid defines his own life, you know? Now that's the angle from what happens to the kid. The Zen master, after that, he just goes and sits in the grass and looks at the moon. And looks at the reflection of a moon and a dewdrop of grass on a dewdrop, on a piece of grass, on a straw of grass. And what happens is the Zen master says, wow, look at this beautiful moon. And that's the end of the Zen story. The Zen master had reached a certain state where there was no meaning to life other than the appreciation of its magnificent presence. And many human beings, I feel, especially evolving beyond the linguistic simulation, as we wake up from the linguistic simulation, we realize we're not a thought. People will feel like they're this unknown abiding witness. But that is actually, you can say, your mind before it wore any linguistic clothing. That means man is not just the particle in moving in a field, man is the field moving the particle. I hope the future generations roar philosophically new visions on the mind. We're reaching a point where we can't just have the car updating without the user becoming knowledgeable. Now more than ever, emotional advancement, maturity on a massive level, as if everybody on the planet suddenly notices that the human species is here. The species, not just the individual. Now you are part of the brain of this hive mind species. How do you conduct yourself? Because I am shocked. I see bees making, like, if I show you a video of like bees, like these hexagonal architects of nature, you know, bees and ants, they have a group mind. Many creatures on this planet who have not made the leap into individual consciousness, they have access to their group mind. When we separated from the environment, where we were like, enough of this jungle, I want some concrete underneath my feet. Now we have to consciously rediscover that hive mind. It's an epic time to be alive, and if you care for your species, you will honestly journal your inner realms and share it with the world. Because if we were looking from this planet from like 200 meters in the air, you know, Imagine teachers in the future for school trips, kids wearing jetpacks or just hovering in the air above the school. You know, they're looking at civilization, and the teacher is giving the lesson in the sky. Hopefully, at this point, silent jetpacks have been mastered. So the teacher would bring all the students in the sky and be like, kids, look at this world. That's where we're living. You know, and if we were like right now, aliens looking at this planet, the communication, how sophisticated and advanced the human communication and expression and reception is going to suggest. So I'm saying that we should embrace communication and we should share the inner realms, but with a collective context and care in mind. Do you know? That means when I to give these talks, I'm not sitting here saying these are the ultimate things. I'm saying in this moment, this is how it appears. You see, because life is a various events. It's like the whole day is a sequence of various events that have multiple probabilities, and there's always a causal and effectual kind of relationship there. You know, so in many things in life, it's like you're setting into motion how the whole moment is receiving its animate being, or animate doership. It's observing it through its being. So we are realizing we're not just mind particles, we are mind fields. I just remembered another story. I'm going to share this as the last story. But I think this is the conclusion of what I mean, that we become fearless, and so does our hearts, and so do our intelligence. You know, uh, in this Japanese show, comic-based show, there's a character, there's this commander that says, Shinzo Sasayugo, which means uh, declare your heart. Declare your heart. And if you could imagine 8 billion human beings declaring their hearts and their intelligence to an advanced civilization, whoa. Like you look at what the bee is making. The bees in the look at the hive they've made. If we could be like those bees, think of what kind of civilization we would build. Right now, the civilization we're building is not actually being built with an awareness to it. People don't really care for the world they're in. They're just in it. Most people are just existing until you realize it took you 4 billion years to evolve to be able to give a direction to life. It was before, it was just energy expression without direction. Now you can direct your attention. You know, now we can build things. Because in a creative universe, every breath is art. You know. So the story is about these three generals who have taken their armies in the mountains, and they're waiting. They're waiting for events to take place, so they're just waiting there. Now these three generals are sitting at a table, and they have vodka at the table. Okay. And the generals have drank a lot, you know, and one of the generals turns around and their egos are sitting at the table, like a table where three generals are sitting in, three egos, three commanding, uh, you can say three forces are there, okay? The generals have taken many shots from the vodka. One of the generals looks at the other generals and says, my men are the bravest. My men are so brave and so loyal, and they are more brave than any of your men. Then the second general who's drinking is like, is that right? And the second general says, no, my men are more uh, courageous than you know, than your men, you know? Then the third general's just drinking. Quiet. The first general shouts. He says, "Soldier!" You know, his soldier runs. You know, comes right in front of the general and salutes and says, "Yes, sir," something like that. He says, "Soldier, you see this the other peak of the cliff on the other side of the mountain, like they were in this mountain region, so there was a cliff. He's like, jump to the other side of the cliff, like an impossible task, you know, jump to the other cliff, you know, other edge of the cliff." And the soldier's like, "Yes, sir," you know, and the soldier starts running, you know, just shouting, "Ah!" The soldier runs and he jumps, and obviously it's impossible for him to jump that far, and he falls down and he dies. And the general looks at his men, looks at the other general. He says, "That soldier knew it was impossible to jump that far, but he was so loyal and so brave that he did it. That's true bravery." The second general's like, "That's nothing." The second general, like, "That's nothing. Child's play." He says, "Soldier!" You know, his second, like the second general, you know, like, maybe that was a bit too savage of a soldier calling. But second general says, "Soldier!" You know, his soldier comes. And the soldier comes and says, "Yes, sir," you know. And he says, "That minefield, you know, go and dance. Go dance like a free soul on that minefield, you know, like a minefield, like bombs were in the field, mine bombs and whatever." So the soldier says, "Yes, sir." And the soldier runs and really closes his eyes and starts actually dancing like his traditional hometown dance and setting his soul free as a dancer in on a minefield. Suddenly one of the mines goes off. Pah! There's no dance. There's silence. Everybody's watching this. The third general's just taking shots. Yeah. The second general says, "That was true bravery. Because he planted the mines. That man knew where all the mines were, but he was so loyal to dancing in that moment that he didn't even care, you know, and that's true bravery, that's true loyalty, you know." And the first general's like, "Okay, that's way more complex than what I showed." You know? And then the third general is just silently drinking, you know? And then they look at it and they're like, "How about you? You show us, you know, the true bravery of your soldiers." And third general's like, "Yeah, I don't need to. My soldiers are brave." You know, he just keeps drinking it. And then the two are like, "No way, you gotta show, you gotta demonstrate." And the general's like, "Okay." You know, he says, "Soldier!" You know, the soldier comes. And he tells the soldier, "You see the waterfall? Like there was a waterfall there." He's like, "Soldier, dive into the bottom of that waterfall." You know? And the soldier looks at the general and he says, "I'm not going to do anything stupid like that." And then the general smiles and looks at the other two generals. He says, "That's true bravery. He used his intelligence." That's the moral of the story, pretty much, guys. That true bravery has to do with your attention. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm going to open it up to Q&A and thanks for tuning in. Yeah, the talk component of this is over. I'm going to share the Discord link if anybody wants, but Q&A is simultaneously happening so people can ask if they like. Blessings.